Welcome to She Counts, the Real Talk podcast for women in accounting. We're your hosts, Questian
and Nancy McClelland.
And every episode, we're digging into the real experiences, challenges, and unspoken truths of life in this profession.
Because if you've ever felt like you're the only one, you're not, and you shouldn't have to figure it out alone.
A special thank you to our sponsors, Forwardly, Ignition, and Keeper, for helping us bring these conversations to life, enabling us to share out loud what everyone's thinking, but no one's saying. Today's episode is called Do It Anyway.
Today, we're diving into courage, the fears that hold us back, the ones we face head on, and the ways we find courage to overcome them.
As you all know, if you've been listening before, we love launching each episode with a story. And Nancy, yours was the one that gave us the title for this episode. And it was really exciting to me to realize that we both had stories with the phrase, do it anyway, that were related to fear and courage.
Well, I am so excited to share my story, but before I do, question, do you remember when we recorded the How to Make Business Happen When Life Happens episode?
Of course I do. How can I forget? That was a tough
Well,
one.
guess where I am right now?
Where are you?
I am in my mother's apartment in Indianapolis because she has Alzheimer's and she had an episode, a vascular episode, and went into the hospital and then into rehab. And they have recently determined that she's not going to be able to come back home. So, in the middle of everything I have going on right now, my husband and I took the train down to Indianapolis and we're spending a couple of weeks cleaning out her apartment for the last time. So just to bring it back around to the fact that we just recorded that episode and then life happened all over me.
All
Life
over
just
you.
lifed all over the place. Yes. So I
Yeah.
wanted to bring that up because I want people to know, like, these aren't just podcast episodes that are some kind of script or some kind of like a prescription or preaching or anything like that. These are real humans with real lives, and it's happening to us too. If you ever feel alone, go back and listen to one of these and know that we're there in the room with you. We're giving you a hug and we're nodding and saying, oh yeah, something like that happened to me once.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And it is, very interesting that we just recorded that episode. And like you said, life is literally happening to you at this exact moment.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. Well, let's get back to the topic, because I do have a story. I have a story that was really, I want to say formative, except it's interesting because it happened to me when I was turning 40 years old. So I don't mean formative like childhood, just formative in terms of really important, and it's helped sort of define everything that's happened to me since then. As many listeners know, my company is named The Dancing Accountant because I'm actually a dancer and I do 1960s style go-go dancing. That's my favorite kind. So that's like with the tall white boots, the Nancy Sinatra, these boots are made for walk-in kind of stuff. And when I first started dancing, so I wanted to do this my whole life, and I didn't have the courage. I was too scared. And when I was turning 40, I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm finally going to do it. And I took lessons for a few months, and then I was invited to join the performing troupe of the Janes, which is a 1960s go-go style troupe in Chicago. And let me tell you, I was terrified because not only was this a new thing to me to be performing dancing on stage with a style of dance that I had never studied before, but I was also doing it in like short fringe dresses. And I was turning 40 years old. And I just, was terrified about what people were going to think. Like, that I didn't deserve being up there on stage or that I was too old. And who did I think I was, hauling my my 40-year-old hiney across the stage and wiggling and shaking it and all of that kind of stuff. I was terrified. And for that first performance in particular, honestly, I thought I was going to pee myself. I really, really did. And there's one woman in the troupe named Laurel. We call her Lolo. And she was just amazing to me. She was so inspiring because she just, oh my gosh, she got up there and she was the same age as I am. And she just got up there and she did her thing. And it's like she didn't care what people thought at all. She was just doing it because she wanted to do it. Right. And so I said to her, wow, I want to be like you. I wish I could be. You're just completely fearless. And she said, oh, no, 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 no. Nancy, I'm just as scared as the next person. The difference is that I do it anyway.
Yep. I love
And as
that.
I say those words out loud, I can feel that the goosebumps on my arms and my legs. It's become a mantra to me. And so now, really, ever since letting that soak in, I see fear as something I've earned. And courage is the thing that makes me strong, not being fearless.
I agree with you. Yeah, it's amazing. It's funny when you were as you were telling this story, it actually made me think of a story that was somewhat similar, I suppose. It's not in the sense of do it anyway, which I'll save that story for a little while later. But when do you remember that I told you I took an improv class?
Yes, I couldn't believe it because when you and I worked together, when you were a contractor for the dancing accountant, you were so you were so afraid of everything and I kept having to encourage you and like convince you of your self-worth. And so then you told me you were going back to school and then you told me you're taking an improv class and then you told me that you were going to be presenting. I was just like, "What happened? This is amazing."
I know. I signed up for the improv class because I was like, okay, to be honest, I was like, this does not actually sound fun to me. It kind of sounds like my worst nightmare. And that was part of the reason I did it because I was like, I need to do something. I want to put myself out there. This is something I'm terrified of because I I mean, it's just terrifying. Like I don't feel like I'm funny. And my ex-husband used to always tell me that I wasn't funny, but that's a whole nother story. I
Oh.
think he's wrong. I just maybe just didn't have the greatest sense of
Well, I think you're hilarious, but
So, well, I will say that when I took the improv class, I was hoping that it would help make me funny, but it I don't think it did. I think what it actually did instead though was made me not scared at all to like fly my freak flag, I guess. So
yes.
which
Oh,
is kind of like touching on an episode that we are going to have at some point later, but I got to the point and they told me when I was going into this class, by the time it's over, I know, and it's really scary now, but by the time it's over, once you are done, you will not be scared to be a freak in public anymore. And
yeah.
I can't say that that's entirely true, but I definitely, to your point of getting on the stage and dancing and being in your 40s, I don't know if it's something that happens to women when they get to 40, but I just don't care anymore. I was with a friend seeing a DJ that I love in a swimsuit
The
over the
DJ was in
weekend.
the swimsuit or you were?
I was, and everybody else. Seeing a DJ in a swimsuit, you're funny. That's true. Yeah, that would have been interesting. But
Well, I
so
mean,
and I
I think that you're bringing up this difference of like, courage versus fearlessness, right? Like I
yeah,
wish sometimes doing the hard thing actually will make us less fearful, but sometimes there is no getting around that fear and it's about finding the courage
to
inside
do it
of you.
anyway.
Yes, to do it anyway. I
That's right.
personally wish that we could delete the phrase don't be afraid from our lexicons. I feel like, and this is my personal opinion, I don't know if you agree or not, but that phrase teaches the wrong lesson, in my opinion, because I would love for the lesson that we're teaching each other and we're teaching our children is not to not be afraid, because being afraid is an extremely natural, very human way to be. And it's autonomic, right? Like our bodies do this for us as a way to keep us safe. And so by saying don't be afraid, we're like, "Oh yeah, don't be afraid. Pay no attention whatsoever to all of these hormones that are coursing through you and these
Mhm.
chemicals that are trying to get you to run from the tiger or whatever." What
Well,
I
it's
would
impossible. It's
It
impossible. I
is.
mean, I've never met someone that doesn't have fear and doesn't get afraid. Like I don't even know if that's possible. Some of us are better at hiding it than others, but um fearlessness is the absence of fear, and that's just completely unrealistic.
I totally agree. Courage, however, by contrast, how would you define that?
I would say that courage is accepting that you feel the fear and acting despite being fearful anyway. So doing
Perfect.
it anyway.
Doing it anyway, like the title. Yeah. I believe that fear can often be a signal that you're doing something meaningful. Not that something is wrong necessarily, but that that your nerves, they cause you to exhibit the same physiological reactions of excitement and nervousness. And I know that's one of the things that Misty Mejia talks about in Theater of Public Speaking, and it's something that Hector Garcia and Carlos Garcia talk about at Reframe, where you take the concept and you reinterpret the same exact thing. So if your palms are sweaty, right? If you're shaking, if you're having trouble sleeping, if you have to go to the bathroom like every 3 minutes, like I do when I get nervous, those are the same physiological reactions of excitement.
Of
And so
course.
if you can reframe it, if you can go, oh, wait a minute, that's not me being terrified. That's me being so excited about this thing that I get to do. I mean, we literally cannot, our bodies physiologically, we literally cannot tell the difference
Between
between. Mhm. So
fear
we
and
have to,
excitement. Yeah.
exactly, we have to consciously reframe it in order to get through it.
Well, and the fear often comes from situations and scenarios that are unfamiliar to us, things that we have not experienced or done. And oftentimes, in order to help the fear go away, continuing to face that fear and repeatedly do
Yeah,
it
to
over and
actually
over
lean
again,
into it,
lean
to,
into it.
like,
Exactly.
exercise that muscle, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, well, I wanna know, we've got a little list of questions here, and we're gonna ask each other for some examples, just so our audience feels like, "Okay, yes, they've been through it, and that resonates with me." Give me an example of a time you were not fearless and you chose courage to get through it.
Uh, Pretty much every time I get in front of a microphone, but specifically, and you're part of this story as well, but
Oh,
I
good.
spoke at Intuit Connect for the first time last October, and this has been a huge goal of mine for a long time, right? So this is something that my why was it was very important to me. I really wanted to speak at Intuit Connect. And so they accepted a submission, and probably a couple weeks before, I was looking to see what room they had me in, and then was like, okay, it looks like I'm going to be in a room for about 80 people. And I was like, I can manage that. I've done webinars in front of 500 people, and you can't see everyone, but I was like, this is manageable. And then I would say like 3 or 4 days before the actual conference,
I
you,
know where this story's going because I
yeah,
remember sending you that text. I
you,
texted you and said, "Oh my gosh, oh 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 my gosh." They moved both of our sessions from a room of approximately 80,
80,
capacity 80, to a room of
500, 500 people, 500 chairs. I full panic, like from 0 to 11, and I think I stayed there until after my presentation was over. So, a good I feel like I missed half the conference because I was just so scared and terrified, and it was literally one of the best things that I have ever done. I
Why?
did
Why was it so great? Why was facing your fear in that particular moment? Because I know it's different for each of our experiences in life, but why was sitting there in that discomfort, in that terror, and then doing the thing? Why was that so meaningful? Just because you'd accomplished the goal, or was there something bigger?
Well, I accomplished the goal and I actually loved it, and my favorite part was engaging with the people in the audience. So, I was always most terrified, what if someone asks me a question and I can't answer it, and they were asking questions and sometimes I couldn't answer it, and, it was fine to just say, "We can come back to that later," or I'll, get in touch with me later. But I think the reason that it was so amazing was because once it was done, I thought to myself, "If I did that, I can do anything." Like, there's, like,
Absolutely.
nothing more terrifying to me than standing up in front of a room of 500 people, and so now I'm like, "Okay," and I just did it. So,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. So it's to me that sounds like you're looking at your fear as a message, like you're being challenged. Can you step up to this challenge? Can you keep going? Can you take that leap?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I we've got so many different kinds of fears, lots of things to illustrate, times where you've chosen courage over comfort. I want to make sure we hear your do it anyway story. But in addition to that, we also have your podcast story, right? Like
Yeah, of
we
course.
we fear looks very different for different people. No matter what your fear is, I want listeners to rest assured you are not alone. Someone else has been scared of the same thing before and they lived through it and you will too. So, we both have anxiety about this very project that we're doing right this second as we speak, right?
Yeah.
But we have anxiety over it for different reasons. What's your thought?
I I get scared to be vulnerable, and when I share my stories, I am scared of, like, not being judged or not being liked based on whatever it is that I'm sharing, and that's where I think the fear comes from for me, or, like, why would we listen to you, So that's what about you? Why when we started the podcast were you scared?
So for me, I actually am not being vulnerable is not something that scares me a lot. Public speaking is not something that scares me a lot. I feel like I have a healthy a healthy enthusiasm and excitement over it, but it's not. I don't feel scared. I've never been one of those people who um for whom public speaking is like, oh, the worst thing ever. I did lots of theater when I was younger, and I always enjoyed being on stage. I get nervous. I get nervous singing and performing music and dance, but not. I don't know. Public speaking, not as much. So for me, what I was really scared about in starting this podcast was as you mentioned, being judged, but being judged, what gives her the right? She's not an expert. She's just some attention grabbing whatever. I'm always super afraid about that one. Especially there's one woman that I've known for a really long time who's also in our industry who uh, has been really critical of me, suggesting that I'm somehow insincere or attention grabbing. And it's been really painful for me because I know how sincere I am. And I know that I do what I do because I want to help other people. But I think that when you are a naturally loud person, as I am, both my parents are extroverts. My brother's an extreme extrovert, and a DJ and quite a personality. I mean, we all have that, and so I'm very sensitive of that. And I was really nervous, like, what happens if we release
You're
this and people?
exuberant. You're exuberant.
I am
That's not a
exuberant.
bad thing, it's a good thing. That
It's a
makes
good thing
Nancy
for the people
Nancy.
who like me. right? It's a good thing.
We're not
You talked
everybody's
about flying your freak
freak
flag,
flag.
you know. I've got my freak flag and that's a big part of it. I'm a big nerd and I'm wildly enthusiastic. I'm My mom got me a t-shirt that says relentlessly awesome on it. And I but that's the good side of it, right? And we're not worried about the good side of it. We're worried about all of the people whose brains we can't read and whose opinions we can't predict. And we just wonder, what do they think of me? And the more that you respect someone, I think the more worried, well, at least for me, the more worried I get about what they might think of me. So I
Yeah.
was really terrified about that. Um, but I did not want that to prevent me from doing something that I felt was very important. So I did it anyway.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I feel that way too because I mentioned it, like, being liked. I don't know, I feel like it's much more of a maybe men suffer from the same feeling, but I think it's something that happens to women often. I have that same fear, but I've also kind of started as I've gotten older to accept, I can't control what people think of me, and
Yes.
I know that I'm not gonna be everyone's not gonna love me. I'm not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. It's like,
I would really love to be everyone's cup of tea. Question. I really would. Do you know that book from it was from my childhood. Judy Blume had a book called Otherwise Known as Sheila the Great. Have you heard of it?
I have not read it, no.
Well, Sheila was the neighbor of Peter in the Fudge books by Judy Blume, and then she eventually got a book of her own. And in her head, she kept up such a perfect facade, and everybody thought that she was fearless when in fact she was really terrified about a bunch of things and was doing them anyway. And she thought she had everybody fooled, and she's very disappointed in the book to find out that she doesn't have everyone fooled. And so I read that was an important book for me growing up. Like, don't try to fake it, Nancy. People are going to see it anyway. So just be open and honest. But I think, especially as women in this profession, um, we are worried that that will make us seem unprofessional. You know, you've talked about the idea that we need to be perfect and
Yes. I know sometimes you see this, you know, you see this description. It's like, "Oh, be professional, but be vulnerable, but do the," of women, you hear those kind of, the
be
articles I'm talking.
confident, but also be
Be humble, be confident,
yes, and
humble. It's like all of these, these things that have like such polarity, right? Or it's kind of like a juxtaposition. Is that the right word?
yeah,
Um,
juxtaposition, yes.
yeah, yeah, Thank you. So it's really interesting because we're told to be those two things at the same time always, right? So we're always worried, we're always concerned
Well, and
how we're viewed.
nobody defined the word professional for me at any point in my life. Nobody said this is what professional has to look like. But we've got this concept in our head that to be professional somehow means to not be human. To be professional means to step
Having no
away.
emotion.
Yes, having no well, oh, there's one. Being seen as emotional.
Yeah, that's a big one for me. That's been a fear that I've had because I came from that Big 4 environment, and it was very much like, if you have an emotion, you need to step away, like, do not be do not be emotional, and I disagree with that entirely because I feel like my emotions, my empathy, my compassion, my sensitivity, I used to feel like it was a when someone would say these things to me that I was sensitive or emotional, I used to take it as an insult, but I think it's my strength at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah, the ability to be who in touch with like who you are as a human being helps you be in touch with other people and who they are as human beings.
Right, but we're scared of having those traits and then
Oh
being
yeah.
seen as unprofessional, especially in certain environments.
Yeah, that can be terrifying. Well, let's talk more about some of the hard things that specifically that women in accounting face. You
There's so many.
mention there's so many. Well, okay, so you mentioned having or being emotional.
Yep, that's right. I think it's also when women decide that they want to have a family,
Oh, we were
there's
just talking
this.
about this
Mhm.
in theater of public speaking. One of the
Yes.
women was she was talking about how she feels guilty when she spends time on her work, but she really loves her work. But then the kids say, "Oh, you work too much." You know,
Right, and
it's
specifically,
being pulled.
she said, she wants to be involved in these conferences, and my response to her, which I'm gonna say it out loud, hopefully, my youngest, or I'm sorry, my oldest son was like, "Can I listen to your podcast?" And I was like, I mean, there's nothing there's nothing in there that you probably want to hear, but I'm pretty open with him about this as well. And my response to her when she said, "I have guilt. Does anybody else have guilt over going to these conferences?" And I said, I this is something that not a lot of women will probably say out loud, but I do not have guilt leaving my kids to go to conferences. Maybe
And
I
that was
should.
something that I'm
I
I'm not a
don't.
mother, but I have like 600 nieces and nephews, and I am always saying to their parents, your children need to see an example of you having a healthy, enthusiastic relationship with your work and with your hobbies and with your friends, because
Yeah.
otherwise they are going to grow up thinking that their job as a parent is to serve their children and nothing else, and that's simply not true. I think it's super 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 important, and a lot of women chimed in saying whether they felt guilt or not that this is important to do anyway, to just have the courage even though you have the fear and you have the guilt, to push through and do it anyway, because deciding to have a family and how that impacts your career, like, this is a decision you already made in the past, and you're doing both things because they're both important to you.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's worth it,
and
do it anyway.
yeah, I think it's definitely worth a do it anyway. And we've so many things that we feel guilty about already. I mean, honestly, when we're talking about this and having the conversation, like she's saying, "I feel guilt for this," and I recognize that because I have it for other things. I feel guilty kind of for not feeling guilty.
Oh, that's meta.
Like,
Question. That's just next level. I love that. I do that a lot. I go meta with the worrying about the therapy of the therapy of the therapy. Yeah, that's so good. All right, some
I
other
also want to
examples.
share
Yeah, go
to
ahead.
that. I was just having a conversation with a male colleague yesterday, and he was telling me, talking about hiring a female, and I was applauding him because it was like a leadership role. And he was saying something about concern over her not working as many hours because of children. And I was basically like, well, men and women have families. We all have families. You need to accept that the value that they have is more than their time spent, right? So, I mean, I'll just leave it at that because I know that's not the topic today, but I thought it was important to share
It is
because I like to
definitely an
share things
important
that
point.
pop up.
We are definitely going to have more episodes on that topic. So question, in addition to women who are working in an office where they might have to ask for a raise or a promotion, what about people who are running their own firm? What kind of things for women who are running their own firms? They get terrified about a bunch of different things.
Of
Lots of
course,
things cause fear. Some examples.
I would say setting boundaries so that you are not working 100% of your time or on your weekends. So I think that boundaries both with clients and leadership or in a leadership
Yes.
role.
Mhm. Yep, and with your team members as well. I mean,
Of
it's been
course.
really, really hard for me because I feel so much empathy for them, but, sometimes you just have deadlines, and it's terrifying. Like, that's something that just scares me completely. Like, I just get paralyzed sometimes because 'cause I'm like, I don't want to have to ever reprimand anybody who isn't, like, pulling their weight or getting their work done, because I know what's going on in their lives. I love them as human beings, and I don't wanna say, "Well, gee, that's really sad," or "Gee, that's really hard, but you have to do this thing anyway." Ugh. God, here we're talking about do it anyway. I want them to find that inside themselves, right? And that is something that terrifies me, and I have to do a lot of deep breathing before I have those conversations.
I would say that another one would be, and this goes back to what I was sharing when I started my firm, is recognizing and admitting that you don't know something. I think we're all scared to do that. And
Absolutely.
trying to find resources to get help or support.
When I taught music theory at the University of Michigan, one of my, when I was still working on my undergraduate degree, um, one of the best lessons I learned was from Jane Hyrick, who was the head of the music program in the area where I was. And she said that the best thing to do when you're teaching and somebody asks a question that you don't know is to earn the trust of the students by saying, I don't know the answer to that, but I know where to find it and I'm going to get back to you on it. And I've found that that builds trust in the same way with clients or team members or with your audience.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And in terms of starting your own firm, I'll share my story, my do it anyway
Yes, your
story,
do it
which
anyway story. Awesome. This is a
which
perfect time for
was
it.
yes, which was I was very new into having my business and I was terrified. Like I spent every moment of every day scared. Like, am I doing this right? Am I making enough money? Am I servicing my clients properly? Do I have enough time? Like all these questions that run through your mind. And I said to one of my friends who is an entrepreneur, I went to her and I was so stressed and anxious. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I'm so scared. I feel like I spend all of my time terrified. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, just, and it just, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What? Wait, huh?" And she said to me, "Yeah, that's how we all feel." She was like, "That
Yeah.
is you need to accept that fear, recognize that that fear is there, accept it, lean into it, and do it anyway. Do what you're gonna do anyway.
And
That's
she used the
normal."
words do it
And
anyway.
she used the words, "Do
Also,
it anyway."
I love when I told you my story and you were like, so I have a do it anyway story too.
Yeah.
Well, you that resonates with me obviously as a firm owner myself. We're going to constantly be working through fears. It's some of them will go away, some of them won't be as strong, some of them are going to be hard every single time. And we're going to find new ones. So, I'm going to be vulnerable here and talk to you about a fear that I am still working through and what it might look like to do it anyway and practice what I'm preaching here. Asking for money. I'm just terrible about asking for money. And a friend of mine, I'm sure a bunch of you know Ashley Francis. Um, she's just fabulous, and she has a company called Kitchen Table Automations where you can. It's specifically classes for women to learn how to use AI in little chunks of time that you could do while you're at the kitchen table. Is the idea. And she was being interviewed by Jason Statz, and he said something about selling these classes. And she was like, oh, no, 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 I don't want to sell. I just want to build something that is really useful to people and have them give me money for it. Which is exactly how I feel. I don't want to have to sell it. I don't want to have to ask you for money. I just want to do these things that I want to do that I think will make a difference in the world and be paid.
Yes.
And not and then just skip the part where I have to ask for it. So, trying to set up ask a CPA and she counts and my speaking and writing engagements with this attitude of what I have to offer is worthwhile and you should want to give me money for it and taking a
Nancy,
deep breath.
I'm gonna tell you something.
Okay.
You need to think like a man. I just
Oh,
I had to do it.
it's true. It's true. Part of it is conditioning.
It
Yes, you're
is.
correct. Part of it though is learning like what are the standards? How is this supposed to work? Being able to compare what you're doing to what somebody else is doing that's similar and ask them for assistance. Like, I don't know what the starting rate is for sponsorship of a podcast. I don't know what a normal amount to be paid for a speaking or writing engagement is, or at least I didn't know these things until luckily I, had built enough community and enough confidence to finally take a deep breath and ask those questions out loud. And
You asked
that's
me. We
I
had a
did. I asked
conversation.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I asked you, how much are
And I
you
said to
getting paid
you,
for it?
"You should be
What
getting
did you say?
paid." Said you should be
Yeah.
getting paid, didn't I? Yeah.
It's really hard for me. It's really a terrifying thing for me. I'm not sure where that comes from. I think it goes back to worrying about people judging me as not worthy. I feel worthy inside. I'm worried that other people won't think it though. And I yeah, it's I've struggled this for a long, long time. There's too much that's unspoken. And so my first step in terms of trying to do it anyway was just taking a deep breath and asking people, how are you handling this? What are you charging? What's the process? How do I do this? What has worked for you? And that made a really big difference for me. But it's a work in progress.
Yeah, always it's always a work in progress, and I tell myself and I continue to do things anyway, but we're always still scared. I mean,
We're always, yeah.
yeah, it doesn't go away. And
Well, it gets better though. It gets better. And one of the things that surprised me in a moment where I exhibited, I'm gonna say, more courage than I would have expected of myself was when I went skydiving.
ooh, I wanna do
Yeah,
that. I've always
yeah,
wanted to do that.
I did it once, I don't know that I ever need to do it again. It was unquestionably the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life. Um, but
Was
it
it
wasn't a
fun?
tandem jump. It was actually after I was out of the plane and my parachute was up. It was amazing. It was actually one of the most incredible things I've ever done. The part of getting out of the plane was really hard though. And
Because
I
every part of your body is telling you not to do this. Every
that's
piece of you is
I remember
physiologically
at the time, we were at, lunch at the violin making studio where I worked, and I mentioned that I was gonna be taking this. It was it wasn't a tandem jump. I actually took the day and a half long class and pulled my own chute and everything.
That
So,
sounds
it was a lot of training, and I mentioned to them that I was going to be doing this, and they asked, "Why on earth? Why are you gonna do this?" And I said, "Well, because I've always had a really illogical fear of heights. And so I'm always doing things to try to desensitize myself and address that fear." And my boss at the time said, "No, no, no, no. It's a very logical fear to not want to jump out of a plane. That's a very logic. There's nothing illogical about that."
So can I
But
ask you,
yeah,
why did you do it anyway?
for exactly the reason I was saying about addressing the fears that I have, I don't like being afraid. My fear of heights is pretty intense, and I don't like it. It it does occasionally prevent me from doing things. Like, I will probably never go bungee jumping, no matter how fun my friends have said it is. I don't think I can, or I think I would just die, like, of fear. That's what it feels like. And I don't like feeling that way. It's really icky. It like feels awful in my stomach, and it feels, I mean, it used to be so bad that I wouldn't go on roller coasters when I was young.
Mm.
And I don't like being held back from living life. And so the guy I was dating at the time, he and a bunch of his buddies were going to do this, and it was sort of a dare. And yeah, no, I wanted to show them, but more importantly myself, that I could do it. And I really did want to desensitize myself. I am not as afraid of heights as I used to be before that, because I'm just like, dude, I jumped out of a plane. I can walk across this bridge, you know? And part of that, and this is a lesson I want people to take home with them, is that training mitigates risk. Learning how to do the thing is one of the things that will build your confidence. Now, that sounds really, really obvious, But, I work with a
I don't
lot
think
of.
it's obvious.
You don't think so? Okay, I'm actually relieved to hear you say that. I work with a lot
Oh.
of bookkeepers who would be like, "Oh, I could never do advisory work." And I'm like, "I bet if you studied how to do advisory work, you would be confident enough to do advisory work." But you've got to actually learn how to do the thing and really dig in and test yourself, and then eventually you're like, "Oh, wait, I do have this capability."
Well, and someone telling you you have to experience it for yourself. So someone telling you, learning it, and then getting the confidence will make it more will help you eliminate that fear until you've actually gone through something like that and experienced it and know that that's what will happen.
Yeah.
It's often
It's like Kate Johnson says. She's like, "There is no documented event ever of anyone having died from recording themselves on video and publishing it." It's
that's
true.
true.
Like,
It's
once you've
true.
done it, you're like, "Oh, that was uncomfortable, but now I'm less uncomfortable the next time."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you remember the moment right before you did something brave and what you were telling yourself?
Oh, I think right before I do something brave, I just tell myself that I can do hard things. I mean, I've proven to
Mm,
myself that I can do hard things. And what I have recognized is that those are the moments in my life that are most rewarding. So those are the accomplishments that have been the most fulfilling to me. And so I just continue to remind myself that I can do hard things. And one thing that I will say that I often it's I have post-it notes all over my computer screen, and they have different affirmations, which are an amazing tool, which we'll talk about to help face fears. And one of the affirmations is that growth happens outside of your comfort zone. So I like to remind myself that I can do hard things and that growth happens outside of my comfort zone.
I love that quote so much.
Me
There's
too.
so much to that. I actually have a hack. Um,
Yeah.
the moment the moment right before I do something brave, I'm usually that's when I'm full of self-doubt. I'm going, "What was I thinking? What was I thinking?" Like, that is not a good moment in my life, is right before I'm about to do the thing. But here's the hack. I say yes ahead of time. So I say yes to whatever it is that I'm going to do. Like Financial Sense got in touch with me and they were like, "Hey, will you teach everyone how to dance the time warp at Workflow Con?" And I'm like, "Oh, that amazing virtual conference with like 700 people attending? Sure. Yes, I will." And I have a policy of not backing out. I am committed. I show up, I do the things. And so my hack is that I tell myself, or not I tell myself, I commit to the thing ahead of time, and when I'm not terrified. And then I get to the moment and I'm like, "What was I thinking? Why did I say yes? That was a terrible idea." But I don't back out, right? So I do
Yeah,
the thing, and
you
then
do it
guess what?
anyway.
I don't die.
Don't die. You're like,
It's
nobody ever
awesome.
died
No.
from dancing on a video.
It turns out I don't think anybody ever did, and it was wonderful. And then they invited me back, um, to do another one, for their tax wrap palooza. It was awesome. So yeah, that is a really, really, really cool hack. What are some other? I know you've got some in particular, like tools for facing fear. Some.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and this goes back to so this is a combined thing. This is why I do it anyway, and it's one of the tools is remembering what your why is.
Mm,
Why did I say yes to this from the get-go? Why do I wanna do this at all? And going back to that and recognizing that you care more about what it is that you're wanting to do or the goal that you have than you do about the fear. So that's one of
That's
my
helpful to
big
me.
hacks.
I don't think I've ever tried that. Like, remember the why. That's really good.
Yeah. And I say that a lot with everything in business, right? And is to constantly, when you're making a change at your firm, when you are just deciding, when you're making any sort of major decision, is to constantly come back to your why and
Mhm.
determining and remembering what that is. And that generally helps you make a decision, and it helps me mitigate the fear that I have around those decisions.
That's fantastic. I have used I've worked with my therapist a lot on she does both cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy. And some of the tricks of the trade sort of that she's taught me were that your three selves let's see if I can remember this. I think it's the thinking, doing, and feeling selves. Yeah, they don't actually need to be aligned in order to accomplish something. So basically, this means that you keep saying we can do hard things, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what this is. Um, so Kate Johnson, who I've actually mentioned twice in this episode. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kate.
She she actually had a really good. If you're not signed up for her newsletter, you absolutely everybody needs to. It comes out every other Saturday, and it's always I make a cup of tea and I read it, and I feel like she and I are having a wonderful conversation,
Can
catching
you
up.
tell everybody who Kate is?
Yes, yes. Kate Johnson runs Bookkeeping Side Hustle, which is a group on Facebook of people who want to be bookkeepers as a side hustle. Some of them do it W-2, some of them run their own firms, and it's a really great community. But she's also got a really amazing YouTube channel where she shares a lot of great information and interviews guests such as me. My tax ready bookkeeper session is actually up on her channel.
Hence
Um,
nobody dying, the comment, of her saying that nobody ever died on recording a video.
yes, exactly, exactly. So she in her newsletter, she talked about having a want to switch. So like one of her kids might be saying, but I don't wanna. And she was like, find that want to switch and turn it on. And envisioning that there's like a switch inside of you that you can turn on and create motivation. Well, I I wrote back and I said, I've got a very similar thing that I do, but it's a little bit different because it's not turning on your motivation, but it is turning on the motions, like doing the thing. I am turning on the switch to make the thing happen. So in cognitive behavioral therapy, you've got these three selves: thinking, doing, and feeling. They don't actually need to be aligned in order to accomplish something. So
That
that
makes sense.
means, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you can be lying in bed, depressed, and be like, I do not feel like doing the thing. And your brain can be like, that doing the thing is the worst idea in the world. Here, let me give you all of the rationalizations, all of the reasons for not doing the thing. And you can still get your butt out of bed and you can do it. You don't, your
All the
conscious
time.
logical self says no all the time. What, every
All the
morning?
time. This morning.
This morning. So yeah, they don't need to be aligned. And I love the idea of a want to switch, but I'm going to be honest, sometimes when I'm feeling like a petulant toddler, I cannot manage to turn that switch on. I cannot find the want to switch. But what I can tell myself in those moments is what you were saying. Like, I know how to do hard things. And even if I don't want to, even if I don't feel like it, I can do it anyway. And then I separate it from the need to want to do it. And taking that, I know that that's something they talk about in Atomic Habits as well. And so my shorthand with my therapist on this is putting your yoga pants on, right? Like I might, because sometimes I just don't want to do yoga. Okay. I'm being honest here. I don't want to. I think it's a bad idea. I'm not gonna, but they don't have to be aligned. You know what? I'm putting my yoga pants on anyway. And it makes it's a little bit easier for me to develop it as a habit. And this can definitely be used to push through fear as
I
well.
agree. And it also helps to take that fear or that activity and break it down, not putting your yoga pants on or going to yoga. I don't think you're scared of that, but at least I hope not. But breaking breaking those tasks down or breaking whatever it is down into smaller steps can help you accomplish it more easily.
Absolutely. That's a really, really good tool. You can also say what your fear is out loud or write it down. That takes its power away. And if you combine that with, you were telling me question about the concept of borrowing confidence.
Mhm. Yep. You find goes back to the mentorship. Find someone that believes in what you're doing, that believes in you, even if it's something that you're scared to do. And that is something that you gave me, that's something that Misty gave me, is this feeling and just saying, "No, you can do this. Like you will be a success at this and I believe in you." So borrowing that
Mhm.
confidence from the people close to you.
And you can combine that with if you're saying what your fear is out loud or writing it down to take its power away, you can actually magnify that by saying it in a group of friends. You can magnify it by saying it to a mentor and borrow your confidence from them. So simultaneously, you're taking the power away from the fear and you're borrowing confidence
And I'm gonna guess
from,
that you probably like to write it down, and I am a very you're a writer
yeah.
and process things by writing, and I'm very verbal and process things by saying them out loud.
Yep. Absolutely. Um,
I wanna ask
although,
you,
yeah,
you have you have some affirmations that you also tell yourself, correct?
yes. I
Okay,
mean,
and
do it
I love
anyway is a big
affirmations.
one. So do I. Um, One of them is I don't even exactly know if I would call this an affirmation. Maybe I feel like my affirmations might be a little weird, but they're reminders to myself. Um, One of them is it's a post-it note that is on I don't have a ton of post-it notes all over my desk or my computer or anything like that, but I have a couple, and one of them um is to remember who you are inside. And that helps me a lot. I think it is analogous to what you were saying about finding your why, right? Like, who am I when I am afraid that people will think that I'm being insincere or attention grabbing? And then I check in with myself and I go, wait a minute, I know that I'm sincere and I know I'm doing this because, yes, I love attention. I totally do. But that's not why I'm doing this. That's what makes it easier for me to do this. Um, I think about who I am inside me, and I'm the only person who knows that person as well as anybody does. And so I have that. I don't know if that's an affirmation, but it is a reminder to remember who I am inside. And another one that I came up with when my aunt and I were going through a really rough time when my grandma died is go with the freak out flow.
I like that.
Which is great because again, it's that concept of moving forward even when
Accepting
you
it.
don't feel like it. Yeah, yeah, which is definitely more of a DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy concept. I love psychology, can you tell?
Yes.
You have
I
a
I
weird one, right?
that's what I was gonna say. Speaking of weird affirmations, this is definitely the total nerd in me. I'm a huge science fiction fan, and when I'm doing something scary, I remember this quote from Dune, and I'm gonna share the entire quote, but it's generally only a piece of it because I can't really remember the entire thing. It says, "I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it is gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing, only I will remain." It's
Oh,
intense, but I love that quote.
that's so good. It's so good. It reminds me of a time I was going through a really, really rough time, when my mom was dealing with breast cancer, and I went down to take care of her, and before I left, a friend of mine in choir said that sometimes he pictures himself on the other side of a horrible, difficult time in his life. He knows that in the past he's always made it through, and so he'll picture himself on the far side of it and look backwards and try to find the path that got him there. And when you said that you'll allow the fear to pass through you, and once it does that, you'll be
Only I
you'll
will
be
remain.
yeah, you'll still
That's literally the piece that goes through my mind. So that
I
section
love
of
that.
it, I will face my fear, I will let it pass through me, and when it is gone, there will be nothing, only I will remain. That's the
That's
part that
so
goes through
good.
my head, but I felt like I had to share the entire thing.
Well, courage builds courage. We keep talking about how we're still afraid of so many things, and that's true. But I'm not afraid of all of the same things that I used to be afraid of. When we do something over and over and over again, especially when we're building up training for something, and we get education about a particular area, or we do deep breathing exercises, or another thing that my therapist reminds me is that adrenaline is a finite resource, and so if you are really nervous about something, if you are really scared about something, go get some physical exercise, use up all that adrenaline. It takes a while for your body to regenerate it. So then you go into it's one of the reasons that Misty Mejia does
Jumping
uh
jacks.
jumping jacks. Yeah. Yeah. And before she does a big performance, you can usually find her in the green room or out in the hallway doing jumping jacks, saying hi to everybody. So yeah, use up that adrenaline. So then you do the thing that takes courage. You do the hard thing, and then you have positive results. It can really make it easier to do the same thing again.
Absolutely. That's right. It's muscle memory.
Yeah, you're working that muscle that gets you used to feeling discomfort. So, I hope some of these tools work for y'all. We would, of course, love to hear your feedback. What tools work for you in facing your fears and moving through them, and why you did it anyway, and a moment where you felt exposed or unsure or nervous or anything like that. Um,
I think
one of the
I
things
also I was gonna say, I think I also want everyone to just know and recognize that, again, as my friend said to me, like, we're all scared. Even though I've gotten on a stage and I've spoken in front of 500 people, the next time I do it, I am still going to be scared, and I'm still going to do it anyway. And even the most accomplished women in our profession will tell you that they are still scared of doing those things. And
Jeannie Whitehouse is one of the most incredible speakers I know of in our industry, and funny as heck, and she always seems so
so
casual.
funny.
Yeah, she always seems so casual when she gets up there on stage, and she told me, she's like, "Nope, I get I get nervous every single time." And if I didn't, I'd start worrying because it would mean she'd lost the fire or the excitement or the enthusiasm.
She's one of the reasons that I took the improv class, because she's
Oh,
so funny.
really?
Yes, because she's so funny when she speaks, and I was like, "I wanna be that funny."
I wish I could go back and tell my younger self that,
Yeah.
right? Like, I always say that I wish I could go back and tell my younger self, nobody got an instruction manual. It's not just you. Everyone is making this up as they go along. You are not the only one feeling the way they feel. Go talk to someone because other people are feeling this way as well.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that I would say is, that it even the most accomplished of us out there are feeling fear and anxiety, and we're using these tools for facing fear and moving through it anyway, and making it easier and making it less scary and making it more manageable. But it's unlikely that you're ever going to get to a point where you really are fearless, and that's a good thing because it means you're human.
That's right, and we like being human. So, on that note, I mean,
Two
I guess
thumbs
I
up
say
for
it
being
sounds
human.
it sounds silly saying that, but it goes back to what I was thinking of when I said that, was the conversation earlier, and just saying, like, our humanity is what makes us amazing. Our emotions, our compassion, our empathy, like these are positive things.
Yes.
So, um, we really would like to ask the listeners to follow our She Counts podcast LinkedIn page and to join the conversation by sharing in the comments under the episode. Tell us, what are the things that you're scared to do, but you know that you need to do? And what methods do you have for and tools do you use to accomplish them?
And before we sign off, I want to leave you with a quote by the incomparable Maya Angelou. We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated.
Thank you for being here with us on She Counts, the Real Talk podcast for women in accounting.
If something in today's episode hit home for you, well, good, because that's exactly why we're doing this.
We want you to feel seen, heard, and never alone.
Remember that you can get CPE credit for listening at earmark.app. Links to that and any other resource will be in the show notes.
And please be sure to subscribe. And we would love to ask everyone to leave us a review, because leaving a review helps other people find our podcast. And we hope that you will also share this with another woman in accounting who needs to hear it too.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.